All right, hi, my name is Markeisha Presley, and this is my review of the literature, my next steps. All right, so as I go through this presentation, I will plan to provide a brief overview of my literature review. I will condense it and explain my topic that I focused on. I will also explain what a possible next step would be for me as I look into going forward with my literature review. Because as we know, there's a lot of work and research and study time that goes into these literature reviews that I definitely think it's worthwhile to pursue carrying it out longer beyond just writing it out. And then lastly, I will provide an outline of how I would make this happen. Okay. So I want to start out this presentation with a quote, and it's that research is what I'm doing when I don't know what I'm doing. And it's from Wernher von Braun. And I just think that this quote really hits home for this literature review because, as many literature reviews, and as most of them, if not all, they start out as the person, the writer, not knowing the ending of the story. So you're writing and you're writing and you're writing, and you're still finding out things and incorporating those findings into your work and developing them. And I think that's such a beautiful process of just what I would call unknown, the process of unknown, because you don't know what you're going to find. You don't know what the conclusive factors will be. And so I thought this quote was just so powerful and really explained this process as a whole. All right, so we are going to dig into my literature review. Okay, so this will be into two parts. The first part, literature review, the second part, my second steps. Okay, so I want to start off first by informing my audience of viewers of my central question and topics so that you understand where I'm going with this paper, with this whole project and idea. So my essential question that I focused on, pursued, researched was how can traditional early childhood teachers effectively teach literacies and connect with culturally diverse students from backgrounds that differ from their own? So this is a two-part phase, right? So first part is how can these teachers effectively teach literacies? And the second part is how can these teachers connect the culturally diverse students from backgrounds that differ from their own? And I really targeted the audience of teachers that were considered traditional in the sense that they were not cultural, in the sense that they were essentially middle class white teachers. So because that is the bulk of the entire population of teachers right now, we are finding that they are generally white and that they are generally middle class. But the problem is that their student body is not. And that is ever changing as time goes on. This whole sense of a diverse world, even, is just coming into play, especially in the classroom. There are so many students that come from so many different places, and these teachers need to know how to connect with these students and how to teach literacies to these students. So that was the whole bulk of what I focused on. So for my literature review, my introduction, or what I consider to be the reason for why I'm pursuing this research question, basically we're going to start with Lonergan et al. That literacy achievement has been shown to be more difficult, specifically for diverse students from low-income backgrounds. And this was a study that I read and researched about pretty early on in my literature review process. And basically, I learned that there is evidence and research that has shown that these students that come from low income backgrounds are not keeping up with their middle class or middle class white peers. They're just not. It's not happening in terms of test scores, in terms of data collection. And even as I follow these students out into older grades and they keep testing them in their higher grades, they're not keeping up. And that was specifically for these students from low income backgrounds. So another part of my introduction, or another need to pursue my research topic, was that the National Center for Educational Statistics indicated that there was a great likelihood that Black students in particular will experience mostly white teachers throughout their educational experience. And this really hits home for me as the writer because I am an African American woman. And this was my reality that I did not have teachers that looked like me and I did not have teachers that could identify with me. And it really made it difficult in the educational field just because you need those people to look up to. Those are the people that you connect with are the ones that can relate to you the most. And if they don't have that common ground, there's gonna be a disconnect there. There just is. And that is essentially a problem, but it does not have to be. It's not a problem that there are mostly white teachers. The problem is with how these teachers are teaching their diverse students. Okay, so I really want you to keep that in mind as I'm going forward. Um, cultural diverse cultural differences in the classroom can cause for a conflicting division between the educator and the student when the educator is unaware of the value that the student brings to the classroom. This is huge. A lot of times educators who are not able to connect with their diverse student bodies simply don't know their students well enough, because if you know your students, then you are able to make those connections and relate, because at the end of the day we are all people, we're all human beings, we all want to succeed and we all need the tools in order to do that. But the problem is that these teachers don't know their students well enough to know what they're bringing into the classroom. They don't know what tools they have. They don't know what background knowledge they have. They don't know their home life or home environment, or maybe they may not even know their family life. And that really just hurts the teacher in the way that they cannot use that student to the best of their abilities because they don't know what they're bringing to the table. Traditionally cultured educators in the US need to be properly educated and trained on how to effectively teach diverse students. That is how I'm going to wrap up this introduction. These traditionally cultured educators, they need to be trained. They need to be educated on how to effectively teach diverse students because they will be teaching these diverse students. It's something that we can't avoid. It's something that we don't need to change and that we really can't change. But we can prepare these educators and we can educate our teachers on how to teach literacies to culturally diverse students. That is what we can do. So, my major themes of contemporary work. Throughout my research journey, I found that many teachers are not properly trained or prepared to teach in culturally diverse classrooms. This was huge. This was something that I found in multiple studies. Multiple researchers found this out. And it's just something that cannot be ignored. We can't look past the fact that these teachers are not equipped or even prepared to teach in culturally diverse classrooms. They are coming into this profession unaware and essentially unable to effectively teach literacies to a diverse student body. And that doesn't only hurt them, but it hurts the students that are in their classroom. In order to move forward with this in mind, the need to educate pre-service teachers prior to the start of their professional career has been strongly argued. So, researchers have found out that these teachers are coming to the classroom unprepared to teach a diverse student body, and therefore, researchers have decided that we need to educate pre-service teachers to stop them from coming into the classroom unprepared. Essentially, educating pre-service teachers would allow them to gain experience, knowledge, and educational training on how to teach literacies to culturally diverse students before they even get into that position where they are teaching these students. I think that is important because we are stopping the train in its tracks by solving the issue with having these unprepared teachers teach in these classrooms by teaching them all that they need to know, or as much as we can, before they enter these classrooms. Many educators have found it effective to utilize multicultural literature in the classroom when teaching the importance of racial diversity. This was another major theme of contemporary work that I found, and this was huge again, and it was just repeatedly throughout my research, I found that these researchers were agreeing that utilizing multicultural literature in the classroom is an important and effective way to teach racial diversity. Another thing that I found is that some researchers have found that home visits in particular are an effective technique for early childhood educators. It helps them gain an authentic and well-rounded understanding of the student and their cultural environment. And so that was the third major theme that I found, is that researchers say and have found that having educators conduct home visits for their culturally diverse students really helps the educator understand so much more about that student and their background and what they're bringing to the table and what they're going home to and what they're bringing into the classroom. It really helps bridge that gap between home and school when the teacher steps out of the classroom and into the home environment. Just to understand and just to see and just to build that relationship, it really helps connect that bridge that is there when life is separated between home and school. All right, one of the fourth major themes of contemporary work that I found was that some researchers strongly pushed for the importance of simply getting to know students better as a mean to better understand racial diversity. And I know this may sound as redundant, right? That I'm telling you, or that these researchers are telling us to get to know your students. It sounds like common sense, but it's not. Because I believe that it urges us to question ourselves on whether or not most teachers are actually taking the time to build relationships with their students and truly get to know them. This could be especially beneficial for culturally diverse students, as those students may be the ones who need understanding and supportive educators the most. They need it. They need teachers that care about them beyond the classroom. They need teachers that take the time to ask them how their day was and to ask them these things to help them get to know them so that they are not strangers. They need that comfort level, that security blanket. These students need to know that these teachers are going to be there for them, and they do not get the chance to know that if these teachers don't even know the first thing about them. So I think that's important to keep in mind. So in conclusion, I found that culturally diverse students face unique obstacles that commonly interfere with their literacy achievement in the classroom. I also found that many traditional teachers are not equipped to effectively teach diverse students, but with proper training, they can implement research-based practices that have been shown to help culturally diverse learners succeed when it comes to literacy achievement. And then lastly, I found that teachers should implement culturally relevant pedagogy, incorporate multicultural literature, conduct home visits, and take the time to get to know students on a personal level to fully equip themselves and to be able to successfully teach culturally diverse students in the classroom. And again, I really want to hit home with the idea that teachers should implement culturally relevant pedagogy, because this, as founded by Gloria Ladson Billings, really emphasized the idea of using culturally relevant literature and tools into the curriculum, which goes into the teaching methods and into the planning process and into the entire classroom, and really upholding those and promoting those multicultural values. All right, so I know that was a mouthful, but all in all, that was a condensed idea of my literature review. And so now I'm asked the question of what next? And so as a step moving forward, I have decided that Octella is definitely the route that I want to go with my literature review and with my findings after completing my review. So why Octella? Well, moving forward with my literature review, I completed a proposal for the Octella 2018 State Conference. And as I began to analyze my literature review purpose more and more, I felt more compelled to share my findings with a grander scaled audience of fellow educators. I felt like what I know needs to be known elsewhere. And I know I could do this in multiple ways. I know that I could do this through a PD, and I know that there are multiple schools that could benefit from hearing this. But as I began to really think deeper, I realized that Octella is kind of like a giant umbrella, is how I'm seeing it. And it's almost like instead of going to one school and conducting a PD, I could go to Octella. I could reach tons of educators, and they could then retreat that to their school districts and share with one another. So I really felt as though Actella would allow me to share with a greater audience in which educators could retreat back to their school district and possibly begin to implement the shared practices. So I felt like I could kill more birds with fewer stones through the Actella conference. I thought it was a great platform that truly offered me a great opportunity to share what I found. The revitalized theme for the Actella conference related to my presentation purpose as my targeted audience is traditionally styled teachers, or those who are not considered to be cultural or diverse, otherwise known as generally the white middle class teachers that do make up the greater population of teachers today. Research has shown these teachers to be the ones who are least prepared to effectively teach a classroom full of diverse learners, simply because they do not have adequate or authentic experience with their diverse students. And as I stated earlier in the first part of my presentation, research has shown that these teachers aren't able to personally connect with their students. And that is a problem because this is most of the teachers that we're talking about here. And so that's another reason why, because I feel like different types of teachers will be at Actella and traditional types of teachers will be at Actella, and I feel like I can target them head on. My ultimate goal is for traditional teachers to incorporate their original teaching methods with a new and inclusive outlook as they step out of their comfort zone in order to effectively teach their diverse students. And that is what I'm getting at here with my phase 2, is that I want these teachers to step out of their comfort zone. I do. And I want them to teach their diverse students with these new practices and with this new revamped inclusive outlook and how to teach a classroom. So some objectives for my presentation would be to inform the audience of why there's a need to revamp and educate teachers and how they can understand and communicate with culturally diverse students. So essentially with this, I'm letting them know that their practices are okay. They don't need to change everything that they've learned and everything that they've been doing. They just need to add to it. That's all. They're just revamping it. I want to provide the audience with strategies and useful techniques that will help enable traditional teachers to step out of their comfort zone in order to provide culturally diverse students with the best educational experience possible. I want to explain to my audience how they will have the potential to make a student's life better or possibly worse in the classroom, depending on how they treat that student and how they teach that student. That was a little bit of a tongue twister. How they treat that student and how they teach that student. And then lastly, I want to stress to the audience that they by no means have to do away with the original teaching methods. And I kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but I really want to hit that home. They do not have to do away with their original teaching methods. They just have to revitalize their teaching style so that each child can effectively learn in their classroom, regardless of their cultural background. That is the point here, regardless of their cultural background. Those differences shouldn't be so huge in the classroom that some students can't even succeed. So there are a few ways that I plan to engage the attendees. So this presentation will ultimately be an opportunity for the attendees to be true and honest with themselves. That's what I want. I want them to look at themselves, look at their teaching styles, look at their data, and are they being honest with themselves? Are they doing all that they can? Most educators are not doing all that they can when it comes to effectively teaching culturally diverse students because of the barriers that are faced. There are so many barriers when it comes to teaching, and there are so many reasons as to why teachers may feel as though culturally diverse students may ultimately be a lost cause, but each and every one of those barriers can be broken down one by one. I will challenge their teaching skills. I will absolutely challenge their teaching skills. And I will ask them to do things that they may have never done before. And these things may make them slightly uncomfortable because what teacher wants to change what she's been doing for the last 10 years? Not many. But we need to. We need to. These children need us to. I will really provoke their emotional side here. And I will provide real life examples of culturally diverse students in the educational system. And I will briefly ask the attendees to walk in their shoes to get just a glimpse of the struggles that many culturally diverse students may face. And then lastly, I will ask and encourage the attendees to be the educational heroes that each student needs them to be. That is my plan with Octella. I plan on submitting my proposal, and I hope to have an opportunity to present at this conference and to gain more knowledge from watching other presenters. And I think this could really potentially be a beautiful, beautiful learning and growing opportunity. That is my presentation. Thank you so much for watching. I know there's a lot of words going on there. It may have been a lot to listen to, but thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this process, and writing this literature review has been so difficult in many ways, but so, so insightful and just such a learning process for me. And so this topic really does hit home to me in so many ways, and I really do hope to carry it out and to see where this truly goes. How big of an impact can I make here? Thank you again for watching. These are my references. And thank you again.